Laura Ariag. She's soft experimental physicist working in theoretical condensed matter department with quantum solid state, but she's trying to push soft matter to the end as well. Please, thank you for coming today.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Nicola and Joe, for the kind invitation to be here today. And the question I want to address in this talk is in the title is how fluid membranes transduce forces into motion. And by that, what I mean is how an internal force can be transmitted through the membrane and make a whole object move. So this is also a very basic questions in biology. And here you have the first example of this biological problem. In this case, what you are seeing is a neutrophil, a cell from the immune system that is chasing a bacteria. So in neutrophil migration, these internal cytoskeletal forces that are remodeling this cytoskeleton results in motion. Another example is, for example, this one is not working, so. And there what you see is large cytoplasmic flows in oocyte cells, and these flows are called cytoplasmic streaming and are also going to be transmitted to the membrane. So far, the role of cytoplasmic streaming is assigned to cell interior organization, but it should for sure be impacting the membrane as well. And as a third example, you see there the rolling motion of lymphocytes in blood vessels, whether they adhere and start doing this rolling motion. So in here is not only internal stresses, but also the shear flow due to the bloodstream and interactions between receptors in the membrane of these leukocytes and the capillary walls, what is playing a role in motion. So all these three systems are super complicated from a point of view of physics. So what I want is to build a synthetic minimal model system to isolate the key ingredients for cell motility. And I'm considering internal forcing, membrane mechanics, and also interactions with the substrate. So our model system to mimic cell membranes are conventionally vesicles. Vesicles are these closed, self-closed membranes made of a lipid bilayer that enclose an aqueous volume and are surrounded by water. And this is essentially the same bilayer structure that you have in the plasma membrane or in every membrane in the organelles inside the cell. It's the same idea. The nice thing about vesicles is that I can tune as much as I want the composition of the membrane and then the mechanical properties of this structure. So for example, if I want solid-like membranes, what I would do is to use amphiphilic molecules with a melting transition temperature below room temperature, above room temperature. This is the case of GPPC with two completely saturated chains, or diblock polymers that can have also this amphiphilic character. Or if I want to make fluid-like membranes, I will use phospholipids, but now with double bonds in the chains, so that this membrane will be fluid at room temperature. A nice thing about vesicles is that this membrane is permeable to water. So if I increase the osmotic pressure by increasing the concentration of non-permeating solutes in the outside, a water outflow will come that makes this vesicle shrink. When this happens, for a solid-like membrane, the typical behavior will be just buckling, as you are seeing in there, because the membrane is rigid, it's a solid, defects will appear in the membrane and the whole capsule just buckles. But in the fluid case, it is more interesting because what it will happen is that, the movie has to start again, but what it will happen is that you are decreasing volume, So the vesicle will have excess membrane, and under thermal energy, it will start to shape fluctuate. And these shape fluctuations that are typical of these vesicles can end up also leading to peeling and having vesiculation and dotted vesicles from this mother. So they are really interesting from a mechanical point of view. Also, if I mix these components, I can get phase separations in these membranes. If you just mix two phospholipids, one with a high melting temperature and one with a low, you can get to a region in the phase diagram where they phase separate, giving lipid domains in this membrane, and then another mechanical ingredient, that is light tension, will play a role in the story that I'm gonna tell you later. In fact, the typical mixture that I use for my experiment consists of a non-saturated phospholipid, a saturated one, and cholesterol. And when you locate yourself in this region, here labeled with liquid ordered phase coexistence, the vesicles that will prepare have these membrane domains. The continuous phase is labeled in red and correspond to the liquid disordered phase. And the blue domains that here are smaller corresponds to the liquid ordered phase. That is slightly stiffer, but still a fluid, and there will be line tension at these domains boundary. And this resembles really rafts in cells that are nanoscopic domains in the membrane of the cells, very dynamic, that are thought to be responsible for the proteins to be able to provide the mechanical environments for these proteins to be able to properly function. So this is an inspiration also for this type of phase-separated systems that we are going to use.
Oh, so can I ask you a question?
Yes, of course.
Since you have these different patches, do they have different properties at the microscope? So these vesicles, they have different surface tension depending on these points? Or can you more or less just consider it uniform?
No, you have two different tensions in the different phases. You have different bending rigidities and the line tension at the domain boundary.
So it's fully heterogeneous.
What usually is going to happen is that this structure is not thermodynamically favorable, so it will result in the complete phase separation, and you will end up with a Janus vesicle. Half of the vesicle will be blue, half red, the two phases in coexistence, and then you can even measure the properties of each of the two phases and get all that mechanical information. So this is like an intermediate state that I just show for illustration, but the equilibrium state will have the Janus structure. Unless these domains bud because of the difference in bending energy, and if they bud slightly, you will get to a situation in which there is a repulsive force between them and you can stabilize them. And this has been reported before as well.
So you say that because there is this coupling between the curvature and the domains, that this leads to kinetically trapped structures?
Yeah. And this was reported, these beautiful structures were reported by Vanguard in an AGF paper in 2003, and they are super beautiful.
Okay.
Yeah. So I just wanted to introduce you like the biological motivation in our model system, but this is gonna be like the roadmap of the talk. I will tell you before, the first thing, how we fabricate with very nice control these vesicles, because really we need a reproducible system, because it's a model system, it's not a real cell, so we need to be able to control everything. Then I will tell you about the magnetic actuation of confined particles within these vesicles, because magnetic particles are going to be the motors to make these vesicles now active. And then we are going to discuss two cases: vesicles with solid-like membranes that do a rolling motion on substrate, and vesicles with fluid-like membranes. Because of the fluid nature of these membranes, they no longer roll, but do a stick-slip motion on substrates. So let's go there. So the first part is a little bit about microfluidics technologies, but then we will go to the active. So the classical method for making vesicles was introduced in the 80s by Angelova, and is just based on self-assembly of lipids in an aqueous environment. Because they are amphiphilic, the hydrophobic effect will drive the assembly of this lipid bilayer. So you can make them slightly large if you help the swelling with an electric field, and this is the idea behind the electroformation. So the structures that you get with these conventional methods have very different sizes in the batch. And also you see in this figure, what you see is that some of them are totally blue, while some of them are half red and half blue. So they are also compositionally different. You start with a dry lipid film, you hydrate it, but not all lipids are forming vesicles at the same rate, and swell at the same rate, and then this is very polydispersed. So you can see here these amplified pictures. So the idea is, instead of relying on the random nature of self-assembly, to help the assembly of the vesicle using a template. And this was introduced in the group of the weights in 2008. The idea is to use a double emulsion drop, that is a water drop enclosed but an oil drop and all immersed in water, to template or direct the assembly of this lipid bilayer. So from the double emulsion drop to the vesicle, there is a solvent removal step. But with that, you can encapsulate inside this structure whatever you want, and they are really monodispersed in size. This solvent removal step, the idea is to design this solvent that you put in here to be able to spontaneously dewet, to leave the structure. You start with the double emulsion drop, but at some point the oil phase will completely detach from that, leaving behind a unilamellar structure. So the thermodynamic argument is that the bilayer tension is really much lower than the tension of the two membranes separately, so it's always more stable to form the bilayer than to have the two membranes separately. But for that to occur, they need to feel each other. So to be able to create an attraction between these two monolayers, we designed the solvent mixture with a highly volatile and a less volatile solvent. Then, when you collect your structures, the highly volatile solvent will evaporate from it, leading to shell thinning. And then, because the highly volatile is also a good solvent, you are leaving your amphiphiles in bad solvent conditions. Then they will start to form aggregates and induce a depletion attraction between the two monolayers that results in the assembly of the vesicle and a droplet of oil that will float in your vial and you just remove it from there. So before, in the wet lab, they were using double emulsion drops with quite thick shells of the order of 10 micron, this shell, and this worked very nicely, especially for large molecules, like the block copolymers, because they are larger, so the depletion attraction have a larger range. But for lipids, this template suffers from instability because of the different densities between these two phases. The water phase comes to one side, and this template will break before forming the lipid bilayer that is more fragile and more delicate. So what we did is to work on getting double emulsion drops with very thin shells to favor this process. And now we make these emulsions with shell thickness smaller than 1 micron that through evaporation of the chloroform gets to approximately half, and then the wetting occurs. And this is what works for lipid membranes. And the idea is that a template like this is actually much more stable than a template like that because of lubrication resistance. Because these two droplets are almost the same size, they find a larger resistance in this very thin shell than in this other place. So This can be done in PDMS, but we usually work with glass capillary devices. So to make one of these devices, you just need a square section capillary and a cylindrical capillary, and you make a tip with a puller that is just a machine that hits the capillary at the same time that it stretches. So you end up with two tips of the same size. We later sand them and introduce the cylindrical capillary into this square capillary to get this configuration. This will be the injection capillary on the left and the collection capillary on the right, and this is my square capillary. Inside this injection capillary, I have an additional smaller capillary. So I can introduce here water, here oil, so I have a water in oil emulsion flowing in this injection device, and in co-flow with that, through the interstices between the square and the injection capillary, we inject another water phase that is gonna break these water droplets into double emulsion drops. This is the typical way we make these double emulsion templates one by one. This is a movie that has been slowed down because the typical production rates are of about 1,000 per second. We produce 1,000 per second of these templates. If you see, when the water ends, there will come oil only. You will form just oil droplets, but so it will result in an alternative production of double emulsion drops and oil drops, but the oil drops float while the double emulsion sink, and you just remove them with a pipette and work with the double emulsion system. We also implemented this device in PDMS. It's the same structure we have here, but now done over a mask so that we can replicate and parallelize the working conditions of this device. So this is a typical movie in which we, as a proof of concept, we just parallelized 3 of them, because if 3 of them works, then hydrodynamic coupling is okay for making it work in industry, theoretically. And these are gonna be the templates to make the vesicles through this dewetting process. So what you do see here, very badly I think, it's a double emulsion drop, so the solvent is still there, but now it is gonna leave the structure forming the vesicle, so the oil is going up, 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 and it's gonna leave the structure, like in here, leaving me with this vesicle structure that is what I really want. And these are different focal planes of this structure. So there are 2 colors over here, the blue and the red. They are mixed in the double emulsion drop, but when the solvent goes, the membrane experiences phase separations, leaving me to a vesicle with membrane domains. And this droplet that you see here just detaches from the structure. So if you remember the photos of electroformation that showed at the beginning, now we have better control over these structures and also over the composition, because all have the same surface areas of the 2 domains for each composition. So these allow us to have very nice control. And as I told you, we can encapsulate inside wherever we want. So for example, in this application, we encapsulate a mixture of polymer. Then when we concentrate it enough through this osmotic pressure that we usually apply, this polymer mixture will phase separate into 2 phases, leading to a dextran-rich core and a PEG-rich phase, just surrounding this. So from these homogeneous structures, we can go to vesicles that contain compartments inside that are caused by liquid-liquid phase separation. That is also another hot topic now in biology. And I have to give credit for Berta Tinau, that was one of my PhD students that did that. And also, this allows us to encapsulate the motors. So over here, what we are doing is to encapsulate the magnetic particles within these structures. And this is going to result in our model system. So now I have to give credit to Paula Magriñán, the PhD student in our group that was doing this beautiful work that I'm showing with you today. So the system, the active part of the talk, is about this system. We have a magnetic particle encapsulated in the vesicle with the technology that you just showed. And in the membrane, all ingredients are important. We will have bending elasticity, tension, line tension, and I will show you also shear viscosity is relevant to this process. So what we do is that my colleague Juan Aragonés built this setup that is called Magneto, and it consists of 3 pairs of coils in Helmholtz configuration. So where the objective is positioned, we get a very uniform rotating magnetic field that we can make rotating the 3 directions of a space depending on the pair of coils that we switch on or switch off. So actually in the videos, the typical image that you are going to see is the horizontal view because we are looking with this inverted microscope. So in the horizontal view, the particle is going to be rotating in this direction. This is the axis of rotation. And here the axis of rotation in the vertical is in this direction. So in a typical experiment, what we do see is that we will have this motor, this magnetic particle, that is forced or driven by the magnetic field to rotate. And it creates a flow within the vesicle that is going to set the membrane into motion, and then through friction with the substrate, the whole vesicle is starting to move. So let's understand this step by step because there is a lot of processes going on from the motion of the particle to the motion of the whole vesicle.
Can I ask this
Yes,
one thing?
absolutely.
So you are in the regime where the membrane is rigid, right? Or still flexible?
I'm going to show like 2 limiting cases.
Okay.
The very rigid case that is solid like the membrane,
Okay.
because the fluid dynamics inside is much easier. And then a little bit more phenomenologically, I'm going to show you the case of very fluid, completely fluid and soft membranes.
Okay. And this is a top view.
This is from the bottom.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Yes. So in fact, what the particle, maybe you see it over here, if I show you the vertical view, the particle is rotating clockwise, and a clockwise rotating particle, if it were not confined within the vesicle, if I rotate clockwise, what it's gonna be is a moving forward motion. It's gonna go to the right, right? But when you encapsulate the particle within a membrane, what we do see is that when they are at the same focal plane, when they look different, they are moving in fact in opposite directions. The particle is going towards the left. So what's going on? The mechanism by which the particle is moving is just the competition between a shear stress, because we are breaking the top-down symmetry here, but also there is a fore-aft symmetry breaking due to the pressure gradient. So it is the competition between shear and pressure which sets the direction of motion. In this case, lubrication here, the shear force, overcomes the pressure gradient, and then the particle moves towards the right. But in the case of the vesicle, the pressure difference is much larger than here and overcomes the shear force. So in fact, the particle is driven by the flow field in opposite direction because of the pressure. And to show that this is really a competition between these 2 stresses, you can find the conditions by which you set the shear force equal to the gradient with pressure, and then the particle is rotating, but there is no net translation, but still is setting in motion the membrane, so the whole vesicle is moving still. So the 2 parameters that control the system are the particle rotational frequency and the confinement degree, defined as the ratio between the particle radius and the vesicle radius. If I increase the frequency, I increase the flow field within the vesicle. If I increase the radius of the particle, the same effect should occur. So this is all about the flow that we are creating within this confined structure. So we systematically, yeah.
I didn't understand when you said that. So the shear force and the pressure were the same, but it was still rotating. It was still translating it.
Exactly. So the particle is not moving, is not translating. The particle is not translating, but it's still rotating.
Yes.
Rotation is imposed by the field and it rotates. To move on the membrane, then we are coupling to the membrane that is in this case the substrate.
Okay, so here, but the drop of the vesicle is still translating.
Yes. So the flow is, the particle is rotating, so you are creating a rotational flow. The membrane is still rotating, so it translates on the substrate. It's the particle what is not doing a net translation.
Yes.
So we vary systematically both parameters, and here you are seeing the effect of the degree of confinement. And we are plotting here the distance covered by the particle in each loop. It's a way to overlay all the experiments at the different frequencies. And we do see that this distance systematically increases with the confinement degree because the flow there is increasing. And we also corroborate the same tendencies with the stochastic dynamic simulations. In this case, using the Rodney-Praga-Yamakawa tensor that doesn't give very well the near field, but we have collaborators also that have including corrections in their codes. So in terms of the flow, what is going on is the flow profile, the flow field is something like that for the free particle when we are rotating in this direction. So in fact, when I confine that into this vesicle, this flow should close into itself, and then this is the type of vorticity that appears. And if we do a cut over this structure, what you see is like a pair of vortices in this perpendicular, in this plane, which is perpendicular to the direction of motion of this particle. And we were interested in that because in the movie, the particle is not moving only in the equatorial plane of the vesicle, but is drifting towards a pole, and it's going to end up in this pole position that seems to be the stable position. And it doesn't matter to which pole it goes, it's stochastic. Sometimes it goes to one, sometimes it goes to the other. So we wanted to understand this drifting because the velocity of particle is also it's also related to the velocity, to the discrete velocity towards the pole. So what we find is that it seems to be the dynamics of these pair of vortices that are called a Hill vortex, which drives the motion. What you do see is that a small mechanical or thermal perturbation that we cannot avoid in the experiment will make the particle to go towards one side, and then these dynamics of these vortices will win over the other, and at the end you will end up with this type of flow that is super stable with the particle at the pole. But still, because the particle is rotating, the vesicle is rotating, and the whole object moves as before.
Can I ask you something?
Yes.
So this in principle is the same that happens when you drop a particle near a wall, right? Even if the wall is rigid, you see the particle. You don't need the vortices to have them go into the membrane, isn't it?
You are referring
As soon as
to
you
what?
break the symmetry,
Yes.
it slightly moves to one side.
Yes.
I would always expect, even without the vortices, that it tends to, since it's moving, that tends to go to that
To
wall.
one, even in the absence
So
of
this is
the
just enhancing the effect of the experiments. No, but my question was different. What is the Stokes number of this particle? So is following the flow all the time? So
we are at a super low Reynolds number.
Okay.
There is no inertia.
No, but the particle
in the
is
system,
following the
and there
streamline.
is following the
Always,
streamlines.
okay. Mhm.
Yeah. What
Okay.
we use is for.
Okay.
So we were like surprised that at this very low range of number, no inertia, why it was going to a pole. So
Yeah.
that was driving a little bit the research, but maybe we
Yeah.
can talk later.
Okay.
So this that I showed you is the case of the solid membrane, in which everything is easy and we can like solve for the fluid flows within the structure. So this is the same video, just showing you that these were the backing case to demonstrate that these were a solid. And this is nice because for the solid case, because the membrane is a solid, the motion of the particle sets motion onto the membrane, and the whole membrane is moving at a certain rotational frequency that we call Fv. So the whole membrane is rotating as a whole. And now the problem is the same of that of a particle moving near a boundary. So you can see here that the velocity of the particle, that the frequency that the vesicle gets, depends on the particle velocity, and this particle velocity was depending on the degree of confinement and on the frequency of rotation of the particle. So we got a very simple experimental recipe to now create vesicles that rotate at the velocity that we want, and is this ratio. So if we create a certain confinement degree and actuate it at this frequency, they will always rotate at this frequency, and this is very convenient to have controlled experiments. But this is only for the solid case. So, and now, looking at the motion of the whole vesicle, what is important is that for the solid membrane, I was using this PEG PLA polymer that has PEG groups exposed to the internal and external media. So this creates like non-specific interactions between the membrane and the substrate. So to characterize the rolling motion of the vesicles, we typically define a rolling parameter that is the ratio between the translational velocity of the vesicle and the velocity that the vesicle would have if there were perfect rototranslational coupling. So a rolling parameter of 1 means perfect rolling, of 0 means that the vesicle is just sleeping over there. So we were surprised at first that our rolling parameter is close to 1 for very low frequencies, and that means to be kind of in a contact regime, and this is what made us thought about the presence of these PEG chains over there. And then at higher frequencies, you get to the limit of lubrication. A rolling parameter just by lubrication will give you a value of 0.25. That this is what we do. And we get the same tendency independent of the coating of this slide, whether it is hydrophilic, hydrophobic, or the raw glass. So we just simply, the core is just a very simple model in which we balance a mixed contact lubrication scenario, just right by the friction coefficients, the normal force, and in here we'll get the slipping friction coefficient and the velocity of this membrane slip, and balance that with the drag that the vesicle experiences while moving, and this predicts the typical 1/frequency dependence that we get, and from this type of fittings that are not very good, we can get the friction coefficient that the membrane is experiencing with the substrate. For this PEG PLA membrane, the friction coefficient that we get is 0.17, that is the same value that people have measured with AFM for these PEG systems. So in the case of the solid vesicles, we can use them as tribological tools to measure friction coefficients. So these are not very interesting interactions, but we can include here more biologically relevant interactions and use these tools to understand how these structural formation of bonds work in terms of these frictional terms.
So in the sleeping regime, you expect that it moves very slowly, while the particle, the magnetic particle inside is moving very fast compared to the translational motion of the
Yes, the coupling, so it's always proportional, the velocity of the particle to the frequency of rotation of the vesicle, but in the sleeping regime they move significantly much lower than when you get contact friction. Okay, so I'm gonna move now to the fluid case. So yeah,
Okay.
I'm going maybe too fast. I don't know. If you
No. I just want to ask you the relation between this and what you showed at the beginning, the biological system.
Yes.
Because it seems to me that the mechanism that makes this vesicle rolling is totally different here. You showed us that it was the stream the stream that made the vesicles roll and tumble. And here you are putting a motor inside, so it's the flow inside the vesicle that makes it roll.
Yes.
Isn't this aren't these different mechanisms that why can you compare them? Why can you get information for the biological system from this when the way you put it rolling is totally different?
So I showed you 3 different biological systems, right, as an inspiration of building an artificial model system, but we are not mimicking any of them. We are trying to isolate physical general principles that work that are like required to translate internal forces into whole object motion. The case that you are telling me, the leukocytes, for example, that are rolling, yes, they are helped by the flow, by the shear flow, but there is also internal activity in them. So it's a really complex system that is using both the shear flow, the internal activity, plus the adhesive frictional interactions. And for example, when they do extravasation, they are no longer in the bloodstream, they still move, and they are using their internal contractility. The same thing as the neutrophils that I show, that this is all internal activity, no flow outside. So biology is super complicated. I am not claiming anything.
But still, you have some indications from biology that this mechanism is really a flow inside the cell that is making it rolling. You have anything? Biological evidence, because here the mechanism is you have flow inside that makes the motion. That's
what it is very clear is that the actomyosin contractile is key for that. I don't have that yet.
Mm-hmm.
There are also evidence that this cytoplasmic streaming, that these macroscale flows are important for the organization of the organelles within cells. It is true that it haven't been assigned to motion, but I'm trying to push that hypothesis and see if in biology that is important as well, because why not? They are large scale flows.
Okay.
That has to be transduced to the membrane. Let's see.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, let's move to the fluid case that is more similar to the membrane of a cell, because this was a solid case and membranes are not solid-like in nature. So, in this movie, now it's a fluid membrane made of DOPC. Do you see any difference here with the former case?
Yes, it goes back and forth. The particle, the vesicle is not moving at a constant velocity.
Yes. And in terms of the particle first?
It seems like it's pulling it a bit upwards.
The velocity is no longer the same at any position of the vesicle, like in the former case. That was very convenient because the membrane was also rotating at the same time then. But now it depends the velocity of the particle on the position within the membrane. And this results in this vesicle moving in a stick slip regime instead of constant rolling. So if you just look at the position of the for this DOPC case, that is the fluid one, we do have each time that the particle do a whole loop and comes down, it slows down, and then the velocity increases. And what is happening, if you remember the mechanism by which the particle translates, is the competition between shear and pressure forces. So when the particle is at the bottom, we have the same thing as we had before, the competition, and it will get to the same velocity. But now, when the particle is on top of the vesicle, this membrane is a fluid, it's not a rigid boundary. So the shear force over there is very small because the membrane will move with the particle. No? You are creating a flow in the membrane itself. So for that, we have a very different velocity for fluid vesicles when the particle is on top in black, and much slower when the vesicle is at the bottom because of the shear resistance to this motion. And at the bottom is pretty similar to the solid case that is now here with a red line for comparison. But also in the fluid membrane, what I showed you is that we can create membrane excess. So we have these shape fluctuations in the membrane, and this is going to generate a repulsive force and have some effect on the motion of the particle. That is better captured in the static images than in the video, but it's really deforming the membrane. So typically, conventionally, to characterize shape fluctuations in vesicles, what we do is to detect this contour, decompose it in Fourier modes, and we just get a shape fluctuation spectra as a function of the Q vector. So when the vesicles have much larger excess area, they will have a lower membrane tension, and you have higher amplitude fluctuations. And if I increase the tension of the membrane, reduce these shape fluctuations, you are shutting down these fluctuations over the membrane. So the fitting is the typical fitting to a Helfrich spectra of the vesicles, and what you get is the bending elasticity of these membranes. So bending elasticity is a material property, so independently of the excess area, if I can measure, I measure the same, but the tension is a function of the excess area that have this structure. And if we account for different states of the vesicles as a function of these fluctuations, what we obtain is a nice agreement that these fluctuations are increasing, are yielding to a repulsive force that is increasing the distance between the particle and the membrane. So the velocity of the particle is different for the different membrane states. The farther apart from the membrane the particle is, the farther apart, the lower the velocity. And it's farther apart because these shape fluctuations are much larger. And for fluid vesicles, we can also have those that I just showed you before, that have these phase separations. So in here, there is this effect of line tension. So there are going to be two regimes. At very low frequency, what you typically observe is that now this red region is labeled in white. And what is going to happen is that when we do the same, the domains are aligning with the rotation of the particle. And in fact, what is going on, if we look at the bright field, is that the particle is not able to cross the boundary between the two domains, so it has to deviate from its equatorial trajectory, and it cannot cross because there is a line tension there. So line tension is resisting the deformation of that domain boundary. But if we impose a larger stress by increasing the rotation frequency of the particle, we can overcome Lane tension. And if we overcome Lane tension, we can have the domains, that we start with a Janus structure, to be splitted and form roads for our vesicles on this structure. So we are impacting also or remodeling domains within this bidimensional fluid that is the membrane itself. So the key idea over here is that at low frequency we get domain orientation because the particle cannot cross the boundary. So there is a reaction, there is a torque that makes the vesicle to be aligned with the field. But at higher frequency we can split that domain because we are overcoming this light tension that for this system is typically of 0.1 piconewton. And we are overcoming it with the hydrodynamic force exerted by the particle that you can write it roughly as membrane viscosity times the velocity of a slip. And this will be of the order of 0.25 piconewton for 5 Hz. So you can, in fact, define a capillary number that will be this line tension divided by this without the RP. So the threshold for getting the domains split or not are around a capillary number of 1. So for lower capillary numbers, we get domain alignment. For larger capillary numbers, we get domain splitting and remodeling of the vesicle membrane. And then,
Just a question regarding the orientation of the particles in the case where the domains are still the domains are separated. Is there any? Is it random whether the particle is aligned with one domain or the other, or is there some kind of chirality that is observed based on the rotation?
it is random. For example, I forgot to say, and it's also random in there, and it's random in here as well. In the splitting case, it's not related to the chemistry or the interaction between the particle and the membrane. We get half of the population will end up with the red stripe over here and half with a black row. So it's just the flow, and depending on where the particle starts, you will get a black domain or a red domain, and you can get the other filter on. So far it's not so sensitive to that. So, but because this membrane is really a fluid, we couldn't say that the rotation frequency of this vesicle was like in the rigid, solid rigid case, right? It was more complicated than that. So we start tracking domains, defects in the vesicle membrane to see how the flow field on the membrane itself look like. And what you could see over here is that these do these loops at the beginning, and then when the particle drifts towards the pole, the defects have different velocity. This moves much faster than the one that is far apart from the membrane. So in fact, these are the experimentally tracked trajectories at the beginning of these two defects, and this overlay thing that I put there is the dipolar flow field characteristic of a point force applied on this spherical two-dimensional fluid that nicely show what we do. And then when the particle is over here, these are the typical straight lines of a point torque over here, so that the velocity will decrease with distance to the particle. So this is what we actually see. What is going to happen is that when the particle is at the bottom, the velocity of the membrane over here is non-zero, because this flow field is moving this region very effectively. But when the particle is at the top, then the velocity here at the bottom is nearly zero, so the vesicle doesn't move. Here we have a slip, stick, slip, stick. And this is what resulting in this type of motion that we didn't observe in the solid case. So the velocity of the vesicle, in fact, when the particle is here at the bottom, is very similar to that of the solid case, but the motion itself is much less effective because we also have the particle at the same time towards the bottom, towards the top region, where there is no effective motion and the vesicle just stick. So if you want to see a comparison between the two types of vesicles, this is the fluid case and this is the rigid one, similar size, similar actuated frequency. The motion of the solid is really much more effective. So the idea now is to use this toy system that we built to study more relevant biological interactions, and what we are doing right now is to include in the fluid case, here I will say the name when it comes to me, this Cialin Lewis X ligand, that is type of a ganglioside, a gluco group, and in the substrate what I do have are selectins, it's a coating of selectin. So I want to study the role of this breaking and formation of bonds in this friction thing. And we are also, because we can produce many, interested on going on to collective behavior, because we can produce all of them and see if something more collective comes, but we are still on the process of getting there. We are also making reactivation by adhering them, really synthetic tissue, by adhering them. So this is work also in progress. And this is the most important slide because of course I can do that alone. The microfluidic technologies come from Harvard, from the group of Dave Waits, that was my PhD advisor, and I'm really grateful to him. And my colleague Xinjiang Kim, that actually invented the chip that I just showed you, so it makes my life very easy. At IFIMAC, I shared a group with Fabrice Aragonés, who built the magnetic setup and colleagues the group. Many of the things that I showed you was Paula Magriña, that was our PhD student. Now she's a postdoc in Barcelona in the group of Alberto Fernández Nieves, that maybe you know. And Berta Tinau also on the phase separations, and our collaborators there, Professor Rafael Delgado Buscaglioni, that has a very nice code called UAMMD for hydrodynamics of soft matter systems, in case you are interested as a student, and our collaborator Alfredo Alexander Pratt at MIT. So thank you very much.
Questions?
Yes. So of the formable, as you said, solid and fluid, like if I deform them, the whole vesicle of the solid, are both deformable in a way, or
The solid is super rigid. The
Super
solid
rigid.
is super rigid.
okay, so
It's like a polymer solid capsule, if you want,
Okay.
but it has a bilayer structure, but it's very, very rigid. And the fluid one, the typical bending elasticity is of the order of 20 kts,
Okay.
20 times 10,
Okay.
something like that. But the solid will not deform. So we have detailed view of the structure, and it doesn't deform. The fluid one is deformed, and it's so sensitive to excess membrane area and so on. But the rigid is really good.
Can you say something about the roughness of these particles? In particular, when you are in the solid regime, in first case, you show that they buckle. But it's also true that those particles were like 100 times smaller than the ones that you really use, right? Because the others were in the 50 nanometer scale. So,
Which one?
the first ones that you showed, like the first ones, at least the scale that you had there was 5
It's
nanometers.
always my scales are always
For yours,
micron.
but the beginning when you were showing, you had like there a 5 nanometer scale, if I'm not wrong. Look,
Here?
yes, yeah, you have 5 nanometers here, right?
No,
In your bilayer vesicle
Oh,
image.
yeah, the bilayer is 5 nanometer the membrane, and this is true for the giant vesicle.
No, but the size of the particle then is, or is not that scale?
It's not.
Okay.
I took it from a book. So this is always true in my vesicles, ¿vale? But all that I show are
Okay.
vesicles of the order of 50 micron in size. The particle itself is 8 micron,
Okay.
the motor.
And when it buckles, you expect to get a very rough structure, but then when you see the motion of the particle, doesn't seem to feel the fact that is
No,
a
the
straight-
buckling is just to demonstrate that they are solid. We don't want them to buckle.
you
Buckling
suppress them.
involves defects
Mhm.
at border and
Yeah.
use content.
Exactly, that's
yeah,
what I
yeah.
was wondering, yeah.
Yeah, it's just an experiment to demonstrate that they are solid.
So you suppress buckling in the rigid particles that
Yes,
you-
if you have the osmolarity balance, they will be spherical.
Okay.
So in the mixer that you have of the fluid-like particles, both domains are fluid.
Yeah.
What would happen if one of the domains was solid? Since in that case, the particles, the particle inside should have an easier time moving the solid layer.
You are right, and this is the right experiment to do. We haven't done it. We would like to study the gel fluid phase behavior as well for motility, but we didn't because in fact in biology membranes are fluid, and what you find is this liquid order phase coexistence. There is no gel fluid there. In plasma membranes, saturated lipids are quite minority components or largely avoided. So we didn't, but it's super interesting from the fundamental point of view. See if we can preserve the nice features of the solid and include some new things with the liquids.
But would it be, I guess, would it be harder to make than
No.
the fluid-like mixture?
No, in principle, no. It will be just a liquid, for example, or a mixture of the PPC and the OPC, and you will get that. In the phase diagram that I show, if we go to this axis, this is the phase coexistence at 0 cholesterol. So you can get to this region D, that is the solid liquid coexistence, and make your system.
And can you control size of the vesicle?
Yes.
But you didn't look to the effective sizes, size of particle and
Yes, I defined the degree of confinement, and what I was changing in there is the size of the vesicle. So what we did is to keep the particle constant. We use only a batch because these are commercial, and then change the sizes of our vesicles. I have control from 30 microns to be comfortable to above. I don't have a big limit, 300 microns.
And you also put bacteria into your vesicle.
Not into the vesicles because I'm using chloroform hexane to make this dewetting process and I kill the bacteria. For that, I use double emulsion drops, which are biocompatible oil, so they sterilize, but yes, I'm doing that.
One more questions?
Can you put the nanoparticles inside of the cell and do the same motion as well?
We are trying to go there. I have a collaborator that is working on embryonic development with the eye of zebrafish, and he just learned how to put the particles in, so we are gonna create them.
What is the size of this particle?
The mine,
No, the magnetic particles.
the ones that I use,
Yeah.
these are very big. These are 8 micron.
But the cell doesn't uptake. those
No,
size.
but you can porate the cell
Okay.
and put them. In any case,
Okay.
there are commercial particles of many different sizes.
Exactly.
For convenience in this experiment, because we were new and starting,
Yeah.
we use large ones,
Yeah.
but we can.
No, because I would imagine that in the other regime, the rotation of the particles will no longer be very relevant if they are very small, right?
Yeah. But still we have, until a micron inside, we will be okay.
Exactly. Okay.
No, with nanoparticles.
I was thinking the magnetic particles that the cells can uptake.
Yeah,
If they start to rotate, they
yeah.
probably have no effect on the flow. That's what.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah, that's-
So in fact, the idea is to see if we can hack cells with this rotation.
Look, enough shear.